Brian, I guess, can you talk a little bit about, well, I guess, start from now, what you're doing now in terms of coaching. I know you've done a lot of different coaching, and then take me through everything you've done. And maybe it's easier for you to just go season to season. Some people that do that have done that in the past. So just kind of take me through all that you have done and what you're doing now.
Okay. Right now, I coach 7th grade boys basketball here at our Glenwood Middle School, and I coach middle school boys track. Okay. What I've done in the past, I've been a middle school track coach off and on since when I started coaching back in 1983. Middle school track coach. I've coached now 7th and 8th grade boys basketball, JV boys basketball. I was head boys basketball coach for a while. I've done 8th grade football, freshman football, JV football, and varsity assistant for a lot of years. I coached girls basketball at the JV freshman level, the JV level. I coached tennis for a little bit in the spring for 2 years, and that was very interesting to say the least. And that's pretty much in a nutshell is my career.
How do you take all this on? How do you, do you enjoy every single sport, or is there one sport you like more to coach, or maybe enjoyed playing more, or how do you deal with all this?
Well, it's actually, when you think about your sports, the whole thing is the competition, because it doesn't make any difference whether it's track, volleyball, softball, baseball, whatever. It's the competition that's the fun. You're trying to get kids to compete at a little bit higher level than what they maybe expect themselves to compete at. That's your goal, what you try to do. But really, the in-season sports is kind of how you just shift your gears around a little bit. And the time, time is huge for coaching and teaching, and that's been that way forever for anybody. So.
Top of the mind here, since you mentioned you did middle school track, state track champion team from a few years ago. Did you see that coming?
We've had since Coach Starner has been involved, and since I've gotten back into it. I took about 4 or 5 years off from coaching track. That doesn't surprise me. Of all the sports that have changed as far as what we do and how we approach it, track has probably been one of the biggest benefits from science and technology. It's crazy today about how good our track coaches are and the things that they know and were available to them. It's eye-opening anymore.
And also, since you've coached 7th grade basketball, you said, for a lot of years. They obviously went to state for the first time since the 50s. Did you kind of see that coming, or did you figure it would be maybe more this year, next year, and with the Bloom and Moore kid?
Well, the seniors last year that went to state, that was my last 8th grade group that I got to coach. They were a talented bunch, and what's happening right now in our basketball program, you're seeing a huge benefit from the youth program and some dedicated parents that are taking the kids out after the seasons are basically over within our middle school, both 7th and 8th grade, and the work they're putting into it. You're seeing the benefit of that in a huge way. Our youth program with the Optimist runs gets the kids started. We have a lot of very, very good parents that help and volunteer their time to go get these kids playing. And Carl Colhorn at Tri-Center years ago was kind of like a semi-mentor to me when I first got started. You got to play. Your kids have got to get on the court. You need that court time. The kids have to experience that stuff. And boy, we're getting kids early on playing games. And now you get kids that are playing a lot more games afterwards, after their middle school season's over with, and that's a huge benefit for everybody.
Well, I'll ask you, since you've been around Glenwood for 30-plus years, when I was in school in Denison, Glenwood was not as successful as they are now. It's been unbelievable how Glenwood is just really, good or great at a lot of different sports. What changed? Was it that youth stuff?
Well, it's a combination of the youth programs that are bringing the kids up with more experience. But right now, with this goes back to track with the cutting edge technology about training. The weight facility we have now, if you've been to our new high school with the auxiliary gym and the weight room that's in there, that's huge. And it's not different from any school. The kids have to go in, they have to start training, they have to get their workouts in, the weight training and strength training. That's been a gigantic change in the last so many years. And Corey Faust, our head football coach, is very good at that. Years ago, when Coach Albert came, 30-some-odd years ago and started, that was one of the first things we did was start up a weight program with the kids. But right now, at our high school and also with Coach Starner, with all the coaches and Coach Faust at the high school with the weight training and the football program and whatever, he cross-trains the kids. That's a difference maker in a gigantic way because it benefits all sports.
Great. And back up a little bit and maybe talk about you and how you got into this whole teaching and coaching thing. Where did you grow up, and how did the interest come in terms of wanting to be a teacher and a coach?
Well, I'm a Glenwoodian. I graduated from here in 1977. And my father was a huge influence, of course. Growing up, we went to all my brother's games. My dad was an announcer here for football for many, many years. And it was just kind of one of those things that you got ingrained in our family, that we were all out for sports and doing all these different things. My sisters were all very successful. Kara Huseman at Trainer, that's my sister. Oh. You know, so we've all there's a little bit of a link there. You know, so we all grew up around that. And then I knew when I was a senior in high school that I wanted to become a teacher and a coach. Just because I'd been influenced by different people and well, growing up with it, that was kind of the big thing. And I got a chance when I went to Wayne State College. I went out for football, not because I was any good at it, but I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn what was going on, and then you get caught up in the enthusiasm of being on the team and things like this. And when I got out, that was my intention, was to become a football coach. Well, when I came back to Glenwood, there were no jobs at that time. I substitute taught for about a semester. And an opportunity came by Leonard Griffith to help and be an assistant cross-country coach with Leonard because no football positions were open. And Leonard was unique in the fact that he was actually starting to do things training-wise with kids and coaching kids and running events and things like this that were, you know, it was the start. You want to call it groundbreaking, I guess you could call it that. But Griff did a lot of experimentation, some good, sometimes not so good. But bottom line, you can't argue with Leonard's success that he had here. Well, those two falls that I helped with that, a football position then came open because that was my first love. And so I moved over to football from cross country. That first year I started teaching and was doing cross country, Walt Stanton was our head basketball coach, and he needed an assistant coach. Well, I said, well, shoot, I'll go ahead and do that. Well, then the hook was definitely planted with me, and I really enjoyed coaching basketball for all those years. I still do. You know, it's a lot of fun. The tennis part was somebody needs to coach tennis, and they were going to give it to somebody outside the system. And I said, well, shoot, I'll go ahead and do that. Well, unbeknownst to me, you know, that was like, it's not just you go to the net and you just play. It's a very unique sport, and now obviously we've had some success with that. But man, that was 30 years ago, so that's quite a long time removed. Yeah. So
you mentioned Coach Griffith and Coach Stanton. I think you also coach with Coach Dyer in some respect.
Coach Dyer and I worked together with the middle school because what Bob did, he was an assistant football coach. He was obviously our very successful head wrestling coach, and then we did middle school track. And it was a great time coaching with Bob. I mean, he was the kind of guy that was a motivator that would get, once again, you know, you're getting your kids to hopefully perform at a level above what they even expect. And Bob carried that over even to 7th and 8th grade kids.
So what would you say right now? Glenwood last 5, 6, 7 years has been good all across. What were the glory years, like the 70s or 80s, or what are the glory years of Glenwood other than right now?
Well, I'd say in the mid-90s when we had the crew with Coach Larry Sturbeck, took us to the semifinal playoff game, that quadruple overtime game that we lost to Spencer, and Spencer, I believe, was the eventual champion then. Those guys were a great group of guys to coach. You know, they kind of set the tone, and as even now when I coach, you always refer back to what those guys were like, their attitudes, their work ethic, and a lot of those guys are in the community now. And they're very successful individuals. Great young guys. They're my friends now, which is huge. You know, they still come up and say, "Hey, Coach, how you doing?" And that's, to me, that's one of the, that's a neat thing. When I have the old kids that I coach, they're young men now. I'm coaching their kids, and they come up and say, "Hey, Coach, how you doing?" You know.
Who are some of those guys?
Oh, well, the David and Alan Hughes, for example, were in that group. Dane Lundvall was another one of those guys that was very successful for us. Those are just three off the top of my head. They're sprinkled in our community and around a lot of other guys. I hate to even not mention a whole bunch of them because that was a fun group to coach. So
great. I guess with all, like you said, you've done so many different sports, and now you're just, the track and the basketball. Are you are you ingrained in that for now, or are you willing to maybe take on a few more here and there? I mean, you've coached so many different things.
I stay in touch with football just because I help Corey with the end zone shots with the cameras there. Football would be something, but at the same time, too, you're looking at a lot of time commitment by doing a lot of these different things. I have my two youngest boys aren't so much young anymore. Today's my one son's 16th birthday today, and he's involved in a lot of activities. So one of the reasons why I kind of got out of doing those varsity assistantships was to go down to be able to go watch, the kids do their sports at the time. So that was one of the reasons why I stepped out of that for those years that I did. And now because they're old enough, I'm able to get back into coaching the middle school kids. And it's great. They're still coachable. You can still have those learning moments with kids, and that's what it's all about, is that those teachable moments and be able to coach the kids up and, educate them in the game and make them better.
Well, I'm glad you brought up your son. This is going to play a week from now, so happy belated birthday to your son, by the way, a week ago. So tell me about you said two kids, and then tell me about your family, how it all developed.
Yeah, well, I have two older children from my first marriage, and those two, I have Jenna, who's 30, and my son Evan is 29. They're both married. I have two grandkids now. They went through when Dad was the coach. We joke around about that, about going to the gym and spending time. They were both basketball players. They were both multi-sport athletes and pretty good contributors. My two youngest now, I have Trevor's a sophomore, 16. I have Tyler, who's a 8th grader now. He'll be 14 in April. My wife Heidi is the principal here in our building. Yeah, I have the pleasure of having a boss at home and here at school, so that's interesting. But the whole thing is about trying to get the kids to understand about competing. Every day, even you have to compete in the job that you do. You're competing against other radio stations. The kids have to understand they're competing in the classroom, and it's not like a cloud that hangs over their heads. They just need to learn that, hey, we always have to put forth your best effort. And I've always said, I don't care what you guys do, but when you do go do this, make sure you're giving it 110% of effort, no matter what you try to do. If you don't want to do it in athletics, great. Do what feels right for you, what you have a passion for, and that kind of rings true with all the things all kids do.
I guess ask you. I mean, it's kind of hard after 30-some years, but like a specific maybe example of maybe one of the more rewarding situations you've had as a coach or even as a teacher.
Well, in basketball, for example, with some of our kids, there's all kinds of memories from different particular games or situations and things like that came up. I still talk to a couple of kids about, they're grown, about, hey, do you remember that game that you dunked the ball on one night? We beat Denison, Iowa here, and Brady Smith, who's a farmer down in Emerson, he had a breakaway layup, and it was an unselfish play by another kid that tipped him the ball, and that's just one of those snapshots in time that I remember. The kids that were the 94 group of football players, there were several instances where they were, put to the test a little bit, and sometimes they weren't tested. Man, sometimes we would go in and dominate games, and those are those snapshots in time that you remember. With the middle school kids, this last year, for 7th grade kids, we had a double overtime win against Lewis Central kids, and they were pretty good. Well, I told the boys, I said, you know what, you're pretty good too. So the idea was you got to compete, and you came out on top. So those little snapshots in time are priceless. There's way too many that I can think of. But that 94 team of football with Coach Sturbeck and those guys, that was a special group of kids.
7th grade, I keep saying that, 7th grade boys basketball, middle school track. So you get to see the stars kind of before they are. I guess Derek Jones is one that kind of comes to mind for me. Did you were you coaching him at that time when he was in middle school?
Derek's actually my nephew. Also, yeah. Derek, I had him in I believe middle school track, and I also coached him as an 8th grader in football. Derek was one of those kids that was always a hard worker. You didn't see Derek really start to blossom until he became a freshman. He started to physically mature, started, once again, the training aspect and, dealing with Coach Starner, learning how to train and things like this. And Derek's obviously a very, very self-motivated young man. He was a great leader for our kids with the football team. The track team, he was a quiet leader, one of those kids that did a lot of things by example. So now you see him kind of, once again, reaping the benefits of that process that he went through. He's pretty good. And when you see, I think kids go through a different maturity process. They'll do it one time like in middle school and high school. Then when they go to college, they'll do that again. Well, Derek was peaking at that training part about that time in college. And so he's kind of a lean, mean fighting machine right now. And it's, hopefully we're going to be able to try to go up. My wife and I want to go up and watch the Big 12 indoor at Ames and get a chance to watch him compete. So
that'd be great. So is that, I guess, your sister's son?
Yeah, that's my sister, Kim and Don Jones. That's their oldest boy. They have a daughter that's going through here, and they also have another daughter that's at Ames too. Kara over at Trainer is going through. She's got a nice run of success over there with her softball and volleyball, things like this, and their kids are deeply ingrained in the Trainer system right now. My other two sisters, the one is in their son goes to Fremont Mills. My other sister is way older. That was the Blankenship boys that went through. They experienced success at different activities that they did too. They were pretty good. I have a sister, Tina, who was she's older than I am, and so my nephew's much older. But like I say, I have a brother out in California. My brother out in California, we have a link a little bit about coaching basketball. So when we do communicate, we've shared some things back and forth over the years too. So,
well, one big sports-filled family, huh?
Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, we used to talk about when we would get together to eat meals, and I just remember when my father had a Sunday afternoon dinner was the time that we all got together to sit down and have a nice sit-down meal. After that, baby, it was catch and grab and run because everybody was doing all different kinds of things. And it wasn't a bad thing, but that's how I grew up. We had the Sunday meals, and still to this day, my family, we have a sit-down meal, or try to have a good sit-down meal on a Sunday. But once again, that was a habit that was just ingrained because everybody's just so smoking busy. And we're not the only ones. Gosh, families to this day are very, very busy keeping their kids, occupied and, having their kids try to excel at whatever they choose to do.
Well, Brian Stanley, I think that was tremendous stuff right there. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you coming in and taking the time.